The Woman Who Defied the Watermelon Curse. Created by A. Dinin Prizo. Roots and Rhythms African Folktales Channel. Deep in the heart of Africa, nestled between lush forests and winding rivers, there was a village like no other, a place where the customs were as ancient as the land itself. This village was so steeped in tradition that even the wind respected its customs, and where the trees whispered age-old secrets to anyone who cared to listen. It was a peaceful village, harmonious, until the day it was shaken by the arrival of two strangers, a quiet man with a strong but silent presence, and his wife, a woman whose beauty could make even the river stop flowing for a glance. This village had a rule so peculiar, it would make travelers' eyes widen in surprise. Every day, the men gathered under the shade of the great baobab tree to indulge in a feast of the juiciest, sweetest watermelons. Their laughter echoed through the village as they savored each slice, the juice dripping from their fingers. But for the women, well, the watermelon was forbidden. They were warned that even a single bite of watermelon would cause them to swell, round as the fruit itself, until they looked like human watermelons. And so, each evening, as the men devoured slice after slice, the women peered from behind closed doors, watching with longing and envy. One evening, the quiet order of the village was interrupted by the arrival of the strangers, a couple who wandered in from lands unknown. The husband, Kwame, was tall, with a calm strength about him. But it was his wife, Zara, who truly captivated the village. Her skin glowed as if blessed by the sun itself, her long braids glistened with the sheen of 1,000 stars, and her figure, well, it was the kind that made rivers pause in their flow and birds forget their songs. Her beauty was like a spell cast over the village, and every pair of eyes, both young and old, turned to watch her. In this village, beauty was both a blessing and a curse, as the women lived under that strange and unyielding rule. The village elder, Abesai, approached the couple, offering a warm yet cautious welcome. Abesai was a tall man with a beard as white as clouds and eyes that held the wisdom of generations. After greeting them, he cleared his throat, eager to share the village's traditions. "Welcome to our village," he said solemnly, "but please, let me share a warning. Here, only the men may partake in the watermelon feast. It is our custom, a rule handed down for many generations." But Zara, oh, she was different. She had a glint in her eye that suggested she was not one to follow rules blindly, and her beauty had an air of mystery that only deepened with every glance. Zara listened, her eyes dancing with curiosity, and, to everyone's surprise, she laughed, a sound as warm as the summer wind. "Thank you, elder," she replied with a knowing smile. "But I assure you, a slice of watermelon will not harm me." The men chuckled, enchanted by her boldness, and Elder Abesai, intrigued, handed her a slice with a reluctant smile. And so, much to the astonishment of the village, Zara joined the men at the feast. She took her place beside her husband and ate with such grace and ease that the men could not look away. Her laughter mingled with theirs, her beauty seemingly brighter with each bite. When she had finished, she was as radiant and slender as ever, her figure untouched by the curse. That evening, the village women gathered in hushed whispers, their eyes gleaming with frustration. Among them was Mosa, a fierce and outspoken woman whose husband, Ajoni, had been particularly vocal in his praise of Zora's beauty. She clenched her fists, her envy thick and hot. "Who does she think she is?" Mosa muttered, her voice laced with resentment. "Eating with the men, flaunting her beauty while we sit in the shadows. She acts as if our rules mean nothing." The other women nodded, murmuring in agreement. One woman leaned closer, her eyes darting around to make sure they were alone. "Did you see how the men looked at her? Even Ajoni couldn't take his eyes off her. If we do nothing, she'll charm them all." Mosa's jaw tightened. "Then we must act. If she is under some spell, we'll uncover it. There's no place for her kind here." Driven by envy, Mosa rallied the other women, and together they decided to seek the help of Nanaya, a wise old woman who lived deep in the forest. Nanaya was as old as the hills, her hair silver like moonlight, and her eyes as sharp as a hawk's. It was said that she knew secrets of the ancestors and could break any spell. Late one night, the women ventured through the forest, their footsteps muffled by leaves, their breaths held in anticipation. Nanaya was waiting for them, her eyes glinting with a knowing smile as they entered her hut. "Oh, Mosa and her band of sisters," she said in a low, raspy voice. "What brings you here at such an hour?" Mosa stepped forward, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. "We need your help, Nanaya. There is a woman in our village, a stranger who defies our customs. She eats the watermelon with the men, yet she grows neither round nor heavy. She holds our husbands under her spell, and we cannot bear it any longer." Nanaya chuckled, her gaze sharp as a dagger. "So, you wish to strip her of her beauty, to break whatever magic protects her?" She studied them for a moment before reaching into her basket, pulling out a small vial of clear liquid. "This potion is nearly invisible. Sprinkle it on a watermelon slice, and the curse will bind to her. But beware, such magic can come with its own consequences." The women returned to the village with their hearts pounding, clutching the vial as if it were the answer to all their troubles. They could already see Zara's beauty dissolving, her charm breaking, her halo fading. The next evening, as the men gathered for the feast, Mosa and the other women waited, hidden in the shadows. When Zara's watermelon slice lay unattended, Mosa slipped forward, her heart racing, and sprinkled the potion over the seeds. The women held their breaths, retreating to watch from a distance. Zara arrived shortly after, her laughter brightening the feast as she joined the men. She took her usual place, and, unaware of the potion, began to eat. Each bite was savored, her joy infectious, but soon, a strange warmth spread through her body. She paused, her eyes narrowing as she felt a pressure within. Slowly, her body began to swell. Her slender waist thickened, her arms softened, and her hips grew wider until her dress grew taut. Her bracelet snapped, her shoes burst apart, and soon, she was as round as the very watermelon she had been eating. The men gasped, their admiration turning to shock. Elder Abesai looked on, both alarmed and intrigued by this strange transformation. But as Zara's figure grew rounder, her laughter only grew louder. She looked at Kwame, and he, without hesitation, rushed to her side, his face alight with love and admiration. Seeing Kwame's devotion, Ajoni, Mosa's husband, stood up, his eyes wide with admiration. "Even now, she is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he declared, his voice filled with awe. Other men murmured in agreement, nodding as they looked at Zara with newfound respect. From the shadows, Mosa and the other women watched in disbelief. Their plan had worked, but not in the way they had hoped. Instead of turning the men away, Zara's spirit and resilience only endeared her more. Her beauty, they realized, lay not in her appearance, but in her strength, her laughter, her unwavering grace. Frustrated and confused, the women returned to Nanaya, demanding answers. "The potion didn't work," Mosa cried. Nanaya smiled knowingly, her voice calm and wise. "Perhaps the spell you wish to break was not on her, but on yourselves. True beauty comes from within, untouched by jealousy or curses." The women left Nanaya's hut in silence, her words echoing in their minds like a haunting melody. They felt the sting of shame and the weight of their jealousy, realizing that perhaps they had been blind to Zara's true beauty, the beauty that radiated from her kindness, her laughter, her strength. Returning to the village, they watched as Zara, now round as a watermelon, mingled with the villagers, her spirit undimmed. The men were laughing alongside her, some helping her adjust to her new size, while the women observed with a mix of awe and humility. As they looked on, a thought dawned upon them. Perhaps it was time to let go of envy and, instead, embrace the freedom Zara seemed to live by. The next evening, as the men prepared for the watermelon feast, the village women did something they had never done before. They stepped out of their homes, heads held high, and joined the men under the great baobab tree. Elder Abesai watched them approach, his eyes glinting with approval. The men made space, welcoming the women to the circle. Mosa hesitated for only a moment, then picked up a slice of watermelon, her fingers trembling with both fear and excitement. Together, the women took their first bites of watermelon. The sweetness filled their mouths, the juice trickling down their chins, and soon, laughter erupted among them. They felt their bodies begin to change, just as tradition had warned. Their waists softened, their arms plumped, and they grew rounder with each bite. But this time, there was no shame, only joy, as they looked at one another, their laughter ringing out under the stars. In that moment, the village's old customs were rewritten. The curse of the watermelon was no more. What once divided them was now a symbol of unity. And so, from that day forward, the village men and women feasted on watermelon together, a tradition born anew from laughter and acceptance. As for Zara and Kwame, they prepared to leave the village the next morning. They had traveled far and wide, but this village would always hold a special place in their hearts. As dawn broke, the villagers gathered to see them off. Surprisingly, all the village women who had eaten the watermelon feast were back to their normal. That is, all except Zara. Ajoni, Musa's husband, called out with a grin, "We'll never forget you, Zara. You've changed us all." Zara, now radiantly round and still undeniably beautiful, laughed and waved back. Musa, standing beside Ajoni, offered Zara a genuine smile, finally at peace. "Thank you, Zara," she said softly, though the words barely reached beyond her lips. Zara seemed to sense it anyway, nodding in acknowledgement before she and Kwame disappeared down the path, their figures soon blending with the morning light. And so, the village was forever changed. The curse of the watermelon was forgotten, replaced by harmony, laughter, and the memory of a woman who taught them that true beauty was not something that could be stripped away. It was a light that shone from within, untouched by jealousy or magic. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed.